Have you ever heard of a kingdom that commanded the seas for well over 1,000 years, only to kind of become a ghost on the map? A whole civilization whose lands vanished, but whose people absolutely refused to disappear? Well, today we're diving into one of history's most fascinating and honestly most overlooked stories. Okay, so if you travel along the coast of Vietnam today, you'll find these incredible structures, these amazing brick towers just reaching for the sky, weathered by centuries of sun and sea. They are pretty much the last, silent monuments of a civilization that was once unbelievably mighty. And when you look at them, you can't help but ask, who on earth were these master builders? And more importantly, how could a kingdom that created something so permanent, so beautiful, just vanish? Let's get into it and unravel this incredible story. So, our journey starts by putting a name to this ghost kingdom. We're going to peel back the layers of history and really uncover the story of the Champa. So, the people behind these amazing towers, they were the Chams. And their kingdom, Champa, wasn't just some flash in the pan. No, this was a major player in Southeast Asia for nearly 1,700 years. I mean, think about that. 1,700 years. That is an incredible span of time. So what was their secret? What was the source of all that power and longevity? Well, the answer wasn't really on the land. It was on the water. You see, the Chams were absolute masters of the sea, and they built their entire civilization around its currents and, crucially, its trade routes. Now, Champa wasn't like a big, centralized empire like ancient China. Instead, it was this really flexible federation of smaller kingdoms or principalities, each one controlling a river valley that flowed down to the coast. This structure, it turns out, made them incredibly adaptable. They were brilliant seafarers, they had top-notch boat technology, and because of all that, they became the dominant naval power and the essential middlemen on the bustling spice route. So you might be wondering, how do you hold a decentralized kingdom like this together? You're not using a massive army or some super complex bureaucracy. You use culture. Champa is a classic example of what historians call a theater state. What that means is power and loyalty weren't just commanded, they were performed. They had these grand rituals and huge festivals that brought everybody from all the different principalities together. It was power as a spectacle. Okay, so if performance was the engine of power, what was the cultural glue that gave it all meaning? This is where we really get to see the unique identity of the Chams take shape. See, the Chams didn't just copy the big powers around them. They were way smarter than that. They absorbed all these ideas from India, Hinduism, Buddhism, the Sanskrit language, and they masterfully blended them with their own local beliefs. And this created a totally unique cultural fusion, what you could call an artistic common language that connected them to the wider world, but was still distinctly 100% charm. And you can see this cultural fusion perfectly in the architecture. Those incredible towers we saw, they weren't just for decoration. They were these massive statements of power and faith that united all these scattered communities. Their religion was also super eclectic, a real mix of things. And they developed this fascinating worldview built on a dualism of male and female realms. They called them Ahir and Awal, that basically structured their entire society. But this vibrant civilization, well, it was kind of living on borrowed time. And this brings us right back to that central mystery of their disappearance, a process that, as we're about to find out, wasn't sudden at all. You know, the idea of a lost civilization vanishing overnight is really romantic, but it's almost never what actually happens. For Champa, the end was a slow, grinding process of being squeezed between two very aggressive expanding neighbors. You had the Khmer Empire to the west, and the Vietnamese Daevit Kingdom pushing down relentlessly from the north in what they called the March to the South. This timeline, man, it really puts that long, slow decline into perspective. You can see their power peaking in the 12th century. I mean, their navy was so strong it sailed up the Mekong and sacked the great Khmer capital of Angkor. That is a huge show of force. But then you can see the pressure from the north just becomes overwhelming. The loss of their capital, Vijaya, in 1471, that was a devastating blow. And by 1832, the last bits of the kingdom were officially gone. But this is where the story takes a really important turn. Because when we talk about a kingdom vanishing, we're often forgetting the most important part of the story, the people. The numbers here tell the real story. The Champa kingdom is gone, for sure. But the Cham people are very much still here. There's a huge diaspora all across Southeast Asia, with major communities in Cambodia and, of course, their ancestral homeland of Vietnam. They didn't vanish, they survived. And that's the crucial point. The political state of Champa, yeah, it disappeared from the map, but the Cham nation, the people, the culture, the language, its soul, that endured. They held on to their identity through centuries of incredible hardship and displacement. It's just a remarkable story of resilience. This quote from a young Cham person discovering their own history, it just says everything. Can you imagine that feeling? Finding out your ancestors were part of this great, advanced civilization that history has pretty much forgotten? It's this incredible rediscovery that's happening right now, a real cultural reawakening. And so that leaves us with a final, really powerful question to think about. The story of the Champa, it challenges how we think about history itself. It's not just about empires and borders on a map, it's about the enduring strength of a people's culture, of their memory. A kingdom can become a ghost, sure, but a people's spirit, that can refuse to disappear.